Hi everyone, welcome to our session. My name is Miss Aileen.
I'm Mr. Whiting. The purpose of this session is to learn about and make some art.
Let's get started. So art isn't just something that's beautiful or meant to entertain us. Art can also be a way of documenting moments in history, kind of like a history textbook. We're surrounded by art, even in our homes. Mr. Whiting, can you think of any artworks in your home that document history?
Yes, I have a photograph of the Al-Khazna from Petra before it was fully uncovered by the archaeologists. And while it's beautiful to look at, it also reminds me that that place, which thousands, millions of tourists flock to every year, actually used to be an archaeological site and has a really rich history.
What about you? Pause this video now to look around your home for a minute and see if you can find any artwork that documents a moment in history.
Welcome back. We hope you were able to reimagine the role that art can play in our lives.
How can we use art to document the reality of living during COVID-19? We're going to be using this session to explore that question, at first by examining some examples from history.
And by looking at those examples, we hope to see how different artists have captured their experiences in different ways, but also to create our own art in order to explore our own experiences of living through the reality of COVID-19.
Let's look at how artists have created art to document important and perhaps challenging moments throughout history. You'll notice that after each piece of art, we're going to ask a few questions to get you thinking about what this artwork is doing and what we even mean when we say document. Take a few seconds to look at this painting. This is one of Pablo Picasso's best-known works called the Guernica. It is regarded by many art critics as one of the most moving and powerful anti-war paintings in history. Picasso painted the Guernica in response to the bombing of the town of Guernica in northern Spain that was carried out by Nazi Germany and fascist Italy. Through the dark colors, grotesque figures, and chaotic atmosphere, the painting is viewed as a documentation and thus a warning of the horrors of war. What is this painting documenting? What feelings do you have when you look at it? What feelings do you think Picasso was trying to capture?
This next example is not a painting, but instead a piece of performance art. In 1969, in the middle of the Vietnam War, the famous musician John Lennon and his partner Yoko Ono staged a bed-in for peace as a way to protest violence and war around the world. Lennon and Ono stayed in bed for a week at the Hilton Hotel in Amsterdam and invited journalists to speak to them about their views on nonviolence.
It's a bed-in, folks.
We thought about this for months. This is the best possible, most functional and effective way of promoting and protesting against violence that our minds combine to think of. This is an alternative to violence, is to stay in bed and grow your hair. Do it anyway, I say, any way you like, but peacefully. Nobody's ever given peace a complete chance. Gandhi tried it, Martin Luther King tried it, but they were shot.
Think peace, it's the only way.
This may sound like a strange form of art, staying in bed for a week. It was inspired by sit-ins, in which a group of protesters remained seated in front of or within an establishment until they are kicked out, arrested, or their demands are met. This bed-in for peace gained international attention and was turned into a documentary. What do you think this art is documenting? What is being represented by staging a bed-in?
So before we move on to our third piece of artwork, we wanted to just quickly show you an image of what a quilt is. It's kind of like a big blanket that often has many different fabrics stitched together to form this big patchwork image. What you're seeing right now is more than 50,000 panels that are each 2 square meters in size. They form together to create one enormous quilt. This is the NAMES Project AIDS Memorial Quilt. This project is a memorial to celebrate the lives of people who died of AIDS-related causes. To give you some background, HIV is a virus that attacks cells that help the body fight infection, which makes a person more vulnerable to other infections and diseases. If left untreated, HIV can lead to the disease AIDS, which really interferes with a person's immune system. This memorial quilt was first thought of by Cleve an AIDS activist. Many people who died of AIDS-related causes did not receive funerals, in part because of social stigma, because AIDS was largely associated with the queer community, particularly gay men. And also, funeral homes refused to handle the remains of these people who passed away. The quilt was often the only way to remember and celebrate those who had passed away. The goal of this project was to bring awareness of how large the AIDS pandemic really is by taking up a lot of space, and to bring support and healing to those affected by it. The other goal is to serve as a means of remembering those who died so that they are not forgotten and their story is remembered by future generations. What do you think this quilt represents? How do the names on the quilt and the huge size of it document the large scale of and human lives lost to the AIDS pandemic?
Our next example is a poem written by the Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish, who lived in exile in Beirut and Paris because he and his family were considered internal refugees under the Israeli occupation. He is considered a resistance poet and used his writing to document his unhappiness with the occupation of his native land. Let's start with the reading. To our land, and it is the one near the word of God, a ceiling of clouds. To our land, and it is the one far from the adjectives of nouns, the map of absence. To our land, and it is the one tiny as a sesame seed, a heavenly horizon, and a hidden chasm. To our land, and it is the one poor as a grouse's wings, holy books, and an identity wound. To our land, and it is the one surrounded with torn hills, the ambush of a new past. To our land, and it is a prize of war, the freedom to die from longing and burning, and our land, in its bloodied night, is a jewel that glimmers for the far upon the far and illuminates what is outside it. As for us, inside, we suffocate more. Notice first the title of the poem, which dedicates the art to Palestine. Notice the contrast of images that reveal both the beauty and the history of pain connected to this land. Notice the final line, which transitions from the land to us, the many people who are impacted by the occupation of Palestine. Once again, you might ask yourself, how does Mahmoud Darwish's poem document the Palestinian experience? How does his use of fragments, imagery, repetition, and other poetic devices convey his message in a way that another form of art could not have? Wow, those are some beautiful, moving, and very different examples about how art can document an experience.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that there's no one way to document an experience or one emotion to highlight. Some of those artists decided to focus on pain and loss, while others really brought a sense of hope into the discussion. I think what's important is finding a way to express yourself that feels authentic to who you are, your experiences, your goals, and your beliefs.
Yeah, speaking of that, we've done a lot of talking. It's now time for you to share your own ideas and look at these examples and the power of art.
You're going to log on to Google Classroom and we'll show you what to do next.
Step 1. Find the art project discussion question. Click on it and then click View Question. The instructions tell you to answer these 2 questions using complete sentences. Then read the other answers and respond to at least 2 other people's posts. The questions are, number 1, how do the examples that we discussed in the video document an experience in different ways? What is being represented in the art and how? And number 2, which form of art is the most powerful for you to encounter and why? After thinking about these questions, type your answer here in complete sentences and then click Turn In. Don't enter into the class comments or private comments. Type your answer in the top right and click Turn In. After you click Turn In, click See Classmate Answers. Then see how others responded to the same 2 questions and click Reply to respond to 2 other people's posts. Pause the video now to engage in this discussion question. When you're finished, press play again. Welcome back. Now that we've looked at 4 examples of art as documentation, engaged in the art project discussion question, and responded to each other, it's time to dive into our own art projects. On Google Classroom, click on the topic that says Art Project Brainstorm. Then, click on the Google Doc.
The Google Doc should open up and look like this. Here's mine. The instructions tell you to brainstorm at least 3 different project ideas to document your experience of COVID-19 through art. For your brainstorm, for each of your ideas, you're going to follow this format. I will create a blank where you pick your art form about blank, the topic related to your experience of COVID-19. You can pick any type of art form, whether it's a poem, a photo series, a video, a dance, a song, whatever it is. So for example, I will create a photo series, this is my art form, about the different work from home setups my family has. That's the topic related to my experience of COVID-19.
Sounds cool.
So now what you're going to do is you're going to think of the different ideas, both the types of art and your topics related to your experience of COVID-19 that you want to document. Take 5 to 7 minutes to fill out this form. Write your ideas here following that format. When you're done, remember to come up to the top right and hit Turn In. We want to see your ideas. Now that you have your brainstorm done, we want you to pick the idea that is both achievable or doable and inspiring to you, and we want you to turn that idea into your own art project. By the end of the symposium, you're going to upload your work, whether that is a piece of writing you've done, a comic strip you've created, a photo series, a video, whatever it is. We want you to upload that onto Google Classroom under the assignment titled My Art Project.
Also, make sure to post pictures of your project to the KA Instagram and to use the hashtag COVID-19KA so that other members of our community can join in this conversation, as well as people from around the world. Please reach out to us if you have any questions.
We're so happy that you decided to join the session, and we can't wait to see the artwork that you create. Bye!
Bye!